Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimSN Podcast, the show where I ask some of my favorite questions to some of your favorite people. And today I'm very excited that we have a crossover episode of sorts, as I have another media creator here with me today. Sir Guest, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, it's npklemm back on another podcast.
Just another day, another podcast. Um, Thanks for hopping on. And let me just say before we start, I appreciate your show. I appreciate having lots of creators out there. I know it's a lot of work, not just to record, but also to to write it, to do the research, to put all that together, and then to do that not just once, but like consistently most weeks. Um, that's a lot of work, and I know I and a lot of other people really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy doing it, but you're right. It's some weeks it's just like a little bit of a slog to put it all together, And the way I do it, I think I made it harder on myself, especially initially when I was like hand typing like 800 numbers per
Oh yeah,
game. So I've simplified it, but yeah, it is right. It's like I think for me, it's like Sunday night, Monday night is just filling out prep work, filling out notes, and then it's Tuesday nights is usually recording. So it's 3 nights of my time, right? Which, as you're a parent, you get it. You don't have a lot of free time to yourself. So
no,
sometimes you look at yourself in the mirror and say, is this what I really want to be doing with my nights? But then, Sage gets in and says, hell yeah, I love the show. I could work out. And so, okay, I feel good because someone likes it. So
yeah,
it's worth it. But some nights you're just kind of like, man, it's just kind of a slog to get through this today.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I hear you about free time, 100%. Um, and about just hand keying in things, just the parts that take that level of effort, and that's just like the transcribing stuff. Before you get to, well, how do I turn that into some kind of analysis? Um, yeah. Um, Usual question. So, in honor of your show, we're going to be talking college football tonight. But before we get into that, usual intro question: How did you get into online sim sports and this community in particular?
So, like, I think like a good chunk of people, like, I came from a previous website. I think that the person who ran that posted on Reddit in like 2013. I saved it, moved on, and then like 3 months later, I was just kind of clearing my saves. I could kind of do it once in a while, right? And you save a bunch of stuff, you don't look at it, and 6 months later, you're like, I got to get this shit out of here. Um, I found, I was like, oh hey, let's go check this out. I thought this looked cool. So yeah, I joined there, and that was like 2014. I've been doing it. So some of the people on the site, like Ape, has been there a long time, right? Like I've quote unquote known him for like 12 years, you know. So that's kind of where I started, and so there was some drama and some I'll say some hectic times on the old site.
Yeah.
So I think it was primarily Rocket was kind of leading the charge on saying let's just kind of do something else. I think he was also using that as like a way to improve his skills and whatnot for his professional career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's I kind of got in on the ground floor. I think actually before we really got started in earnest, the first real early model of the sim, we did a run like a practice game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And actually had it streamed, and I was actually one of the broadcasters on that stream doing the play by play of this fake game that we were just kind of some guys were just kind of building together. So been around here for a long time, know some of these guys for a long time, so a lot of familiarity and obviously a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't be doing it after 12 years.
Yeah, and doing putting real time into real podcasts for fake sports. Um, oh, that's why I was blanking on. You were talking about the time commitment, and I was like, yeah, I did one show, and then I decided I would do another, and part of me was like, are you completely insane? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, yes, and the answer is yes, but here we are. I think this is our 17th podcast episode, and our second full year of Sim NFL show. So,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Sim NFL show is what inspired me to do mine, right? I was like, oh, this is so good. I wish there was something for college. I'm like, shit. I guess I'll do it. And I really enjoyed the SimSN getting to hear like lots of different people's perspectives on kind of their approach and when they come to it. And obviously, last week's episode with Dean,
Mm.
fantastic, just because Dean is great. So I'm just glad to hear his voice again. On the old site, he was on a lot more stuff like this, so you get to hear his voice a lot more often. So great to hear his voice again, and that was a really, really fun episode.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that I mean, I may have and just remember, but yeah, I don't. That was the first time I'd heard him speak, and it was such a delight. I mean, before the cameras were even rolling, he had me laughing. I had
Yes.
to like compose myself just to like get through the intro, and I don't even think we did. And looking back on it, I don't even think we made it out of the intro. Um, but yeah, so I who have been on this site for a long time since the NFL started, but don't have as much history with the old sim. It's been nice to talk to people and get to know them on the sim side, but also kind of on the human person side. Um, and it's fascinating to me. You don't have to go into more details than you want to, but the fact that like when you're talking over a decade, now you're talking like full like stages of life, like going through, with people, um, people who you knew when they were teenagers or college age who now have families and careers and go on to these other things. Um, uh, I don't know. I just think that's fascinating to have a hobby that binds you through all of that other like human stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I joined the old sim before I even got married. Now I've been married for over a decade, got 2 kids. I've bought 2 houses and all this stuff. Went back to college, graduated. All that fun stuff. And I remember when, you know, people who are no longer on the site, who maybe talking in other chats that I'm part in. I remember when they were teenagers. Now they're getting close to 30. And I'm like, that makes me feel old. I'm not that much older than them. But like people that I remember as being 19, 20 year olds are like now 28. It's like, what? Where did this time go? Even though I know where it went because I'm mid 30s, so like I'm not getting any younger either.
Yeah, yeah. My wife was on a role playing forum, like a play by post role playing forum for a long time. It actually started as like a Neopets group. And then because they were all like Drake owners on Neopets, which Drake was like one of those like super expensive like ones you had to like transform into, and you had like a lot of fake money to get. Um, and then they created those characters and then turned that into a world and turned it its own site. And yeah, she started that when she was a teenager, and some of them are still there, years and years later, still telling the same stories with the same or with new characters. Um, yeah, I don't know what their version of Dean Hammond's would be. Um, um, to think of if Max Howard was a dragon, what kind would he be? Anyway, before I get too sidetracked on that world, um, yeah, college football. We got some playoffs coming up. We got a top 12. We got a bracket. We got a bracket challenge ready to go. Um,
Yeah.
um, so I mean, right off the bat, thoughts on any surprises from the committee in terms of who made it in, who was left out, who was seated where. I know at the very with the bottom we have Utah State 10, looks like Bowling Green 11, and then Houston 12. Um, and I think what San Jose State probably first out. I think 13.
Yeah, I mean, I think they went from like, they weren't San Jose State in at least in the committee rankings were never really valued that highly, just because again, I mean, they played a pretty easy schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Going 12-0 is never easy for anyone, so it's still impressive to do that, right? Um, but they had a chance with UNLV, just couldn't finish it out. If they did, obviously, I think they'd be in probably over. I think you probably kick Houston out or Bowling Green, which would be crazy because those I think are two really good teams
Yeah.
that probably deserve to be in. And the way the Big 12 kind of finished out was crazy. Utah versus Texas Tech. I really thought Utah was going to win that game. Texas Tech held them off, and then Baylor and Houston. That game, the craziest wild ending that you could have seen in that game. Houston couldn't get anything going offensively. And they scored a late touchdown, and then all of a sudden, Jose Harmon just drops the ball right in their laps, right there. Um, After Houston scored a touchdown and missed the extra point, so they needed to score a touchdown and get a 2-point conversion quickly. And then I think that they beat Texas Tech, right? Yeah, they did because that's the only way they get in.
Yeah.
So if they don't beat Texas Tech, they're out. So Houston, who had, I think, a little bit of trouble near the end of the season, got to the Big 12 Conference Tournament and said, I don't want to go home yet. So I don't think there's anything. I don't know that you can really argue the top 12, honestly, with how the season finished. San Jose State missing it, I think makes sense. I think San Diego State was close to it, but at the end they lost as well, right? If they had won, they didn't. They're in over Utah State. Washington State was probably close too, but losing to Utah State and San Diego State, kind of hard to overcome. That Virginia is a team that I think probably feels a little burned with the way the season finished out. But I don't know that you have a way that you can look at this top 12 and say, I don't believe that they should be in. I think all 12 of these teams really do kind of belong. You can probably make arguments of who belongs where and what seeding, but that's ticky tack at that point, right? I think you got it's a pretty good top 12 here.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole point is, once you make it, then it's just beat your next opponent. Someone's going to win 3 or 4 games and be crowned champion. So,
look at the first round games. I don't see a bad game here. I see really fun matchups. I think this first week of the playoffs is going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, like I love Miami. I feel like they've had such a tough road. They've played so many really good teams really close.
They've got like a top 5 strength of schedule. So they lost Tennessee by like 10. Played them really close early in the season.
Yeah, I love that the committee rewarded that. But Utah State 7-10 and Penn State if they win, like it's
it's a tough draw. But there's no easy draws. Look at the top 4. There's no easy teams there, right? That's part of the reason why you get top 4 like that. 3 of those teams are undefeated.
Yeah. So for the bottom 4 seeds for 9 through 12, we got Utah facing off Texas Tech. We got Utah State against Miami, Florida, Bowling Green, Florida State, and then Houston going to number 5 Tulane. Who do you think of the lowest 4 seeds? Who do you think has the best path forward?
That's tough. I'm gonna say Utah. I love what Utah does in offense. Obviously, I've modeled my offense after it in a certain way, right?
Yeah, we all want to be Utah when we grow up.
But they had a chance. Utah had a chance at Texas Tech 2 weeks ago, and got off to a horrible start and couldn't come back in that game, right? Mm-hmm. And they were down, I think, by 11 at halftime, which is not a position that Utah likes to be in. And Holden's been a better passer this year, but that's not what you want him to do. You don't want him throwing the ball 30 times. So I think they have a tough path just because Texas Tech plays really good run defense, and their offense, it's not maybe that they don't get the biggest plays. They just don't kill themselves, right? They don't turn the ball over. They're very good on third downs. They keep drives going. They possess the ball. They can move the ball all sorts of different ways. So they're a team that it's I think I started undervaluing them near the end of the season because I didn't feel like their schedule was all that good. But I'm starting to stop doing that now. I think the high seeds get the home game. It's a home game, right? So that's a tough place to do. I think Houston's got the worst draw. Tulane, I think, is a pretty complete team.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is, if PMS can stop throwing interceptions in big games. That's my only concern I have with that offense. Occasionally, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, the running back there, they just don't give him the ball sometimes. They don't get it because when he touches the ball, the dude goes off. Like when you give him 25 carries, he gets 200 yards. Like it's just free, easy yards, and sometimes they just don't give him the ball. That's one of the concerns is what they're doing there. Miami, again, I love Miami. They don't have a running game. Fine. You don't need it if your passing game's good. Only concern I have is their receiver. One, I think, is still out this game, but they made it through the ACC tournament without him. So is it that big of a deal? Utah State's defense and metrics for my numbers aren't very good, but they keep winning games. So who cares if defense metrics aren't good? You still win the damn game. So now Florida State and Bowling Green I think is very interesting because Kirby's got one foot kind of out the door. They lost to Cal, and I'm not sure he game planned for that game, to be honest. Bowling Green is a really good team, really complete team, right? but sometimes the running backs are good. But every once in a while, Brinkley, the number one guy, will kind of have a slow start to a game. I've noticed sometimes he'll just it'll take a little while to get started, right? Florida State started taking over the game against Cal, and then they started giving the ball to Mike Howard to close it out, and then that's when the offense completely shut down, which is really concerning. Because if Mike Howard's not moving the ball, then a little concerning to me if they're going to be able to move the ball in Bowling Green consistently. So, I don't either team has a really good option. I think Bowling Green is a very interesting one just because, again, they played in a pretty weak schedule. Lost to Washington State, game that I don't think if they play again, they probably don't lose that game again. But again, they don't have a whole lot of good teams on their schedule. They beat Ball State twice, but Ball State hasn't played anybody either, so I don't know how really good we really are nationally, honestly. So I don't know how impressive that really is. But I think they're a team that has the pieces to do it. I just don't know if Florida State's going to be locked in. Mm-hmm. So if Florida State's locked in, they're one of the best teams in the country. We saw it through the season, right? But when they were really humming, they beat Miami, right? They have the capacity to beat anyone in this playoff if they're on.
Yeah, man, I'm just getting more hyped the more I hear you talk about it. I agree. There's not a bad game. There's not a bad matchup. There's so many, big names. Whether you're a college football fan, whether you're a pro fan thinking about the draft, there's so many names to follow. So on that note, we got 3 quarterbacks in this first round of game. Been talked about as potential first round picks. Holden, obviously, out of Utah. We got PMS, and then we've got Leathersich of Miami. Who out of those storylines, who do you think has the most to gain or lose in terms of their their college career or their draft stock? Who do you think has the most to gain by the way they play in this college playoff?
So I'm going to answer the opposite question first. I think Leathersich has the least to gain. I think people are pretty set on who he is based on the season he's had. I don't think, based on his play style, what he's done, I don't think that there's much he's going to improve in his draft stock, frankly, here. I think the real guy is going to be PMS. I don't know how much of it is people memeing and how much of it is people being real, but he's gotten a lot of, obviously K Green's a very active member in the community. I think he's got 800,000 chats or something like that. And he hypes up his guys, right? And he's having fun with it. Yeah. But some guys, I think, to poke a little fun at him, and K Green's a good sport and goes with it. Kind of talked a little smack on PMS. But to be honest, PMS does have problems as his prospect, right? The turnovers, I've already talked about it. Mm-hmm. It's like a turnover a game is basically his entire career. And you typically, my opinion, if you want a guy who's going to throw the ball in college, you can't have the turnover a game as part of the stipulation, right? You got to have your interceptions really low, which, Leathersich has, I think 4 or 5 on the season in 14 games. Wow. He's really low, where you want a guy of that caliber to be. Mm-hmm. Holden's a totally different archetype. And I think based on what he's done this season, teams who want that archetype don't have any more questions about him, right? Mm-hmm. They're probably pretty set. I think PMS is a guy who has a chance if he plays well. Houston has a good pass defense, and the Goods Baylor also. If they make it past Houston, Baylor has a really good pass defense. So he has 2 opportunities here before he could potentially see the semifinals of pass defenses that are, I think in my rankings, top 15, top 20, to prove to people that he's worth it. What I think hurts is when you have a receiver, number one, like he's got Jeffrey, another guy whose last name I can't pronounce, who is as dominant as he is. Yes, it's a guy I think you start asking honest questions of. I think Savage got it a little bit last season with BJ Flash, right? How much of your success is because you have this one guy who's dominant, mm-hmm. and how much is it because you're a good player? Yeah. And I think PMS is going to suffer from that a little bit, just going into the draft. Mm-hmm. Right? You have the turnovers, and you've got a super dominant wide receiver, number one, right? how much are people going to look at you and say, well, okay, you turn the ball over, you got this really good receiver. How good are you really, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you run a team with some just decent players, what will your numbers look like, right?
Yeah, and up against some much better cornerbacks too.
Yeah, again, my rankings, Houston and Baylor, really good pass defense. I think Baylor for a long part of the season was number one in my rankings. I think they're still top five. So, if they make it past Houston, which Houston's not going to be easy to beat, right? Only Houston's lost a game this season by more than like 8 points or something like that. They've not had nothing's been close for a loss, right? So they're not going to be easy to beat. But Baylor would be a really good challenge for that passing game.
Yeah. Do you? I'm gonna dig real deep on you right now. Do you think there's a low seed in the first round that matches up that could be really dangerous because of how they match up against the team that they would play against? Which top four team they're aligned with in the semifinal? Is there anyone, or actually I'll say any of the 8 that you think the teams with a bye like really don't want to play because of the way they would match up?
The easy answer would be Baylor because they've already lost to Houston, right? Mm-hmm. But I think Penn State might have some trouble with Miami. Penn State's another team that I think has had some real questions about their strength of schedule. The Big Ten kind of had a down season. Illinois being the number 2 seed in the Big Ten conference tournament, shows that maybe they weren't. I think the Big Ten had some problems, and I think Miami is fully battle tested. I think they play pretty good defense. And we've seen at times with Penn State, same situation with the quarterback. I think Michael Garcia has 2 or 3 games with 4 picks. I have questions about that kind of quarterback in the playoffs. Obviously, last season, Danny Pagnozzi was able to get them to the championship game where they were way outmatched, but everyone was outmatched against LSU last year, so that's not, I can't take that hurt against, against Penn State. But I really think Penn State doesn't want to see, honestly, either of those teams. I think that they would, I think Penn State's probably one of the top 4 seeds I'm probably the least confident in at this point based on kind of where they sit. And honestly, if they just give Matt Van Roten the ball 30 times a game like they should be, I'd feel better. But for some reason, they keep giving the ball 18 times. He's not touching the ball as much as he should, in my opinion.
Yeah. And
I don't know if that was a strategy in the regular season to try and keep him healthy. And playoffs, they're going to rank it, ratchet up. But if they don't, I have concerns if they can, keep the ball in their hands for too long to win the game,
Are they giving it to other runners, or is it just are they running the ball less?
They're running the ball less. Last year Chris Brooks was getting it like 30-plus times a game, right? And even last year Van Roten was getting the ball about 10 times a game. Because they were just running the crap out of the ball.
Yeah.
But Garcia is a B overall, like Pagnozzi was. But Pagnozzi was a senior. Garcia, I think, is a sophomore, right? So he's got more room to grow.
Yeah.
So I think, Rocket's thinking is, hey, this might be my quarterback for the next 2 seasons. Let's give him the chance to kind of get accustomed to live games in a season where things go wrong. I still can rely back and dial it back a little bit. So I think in general, I think it's been the strategy of get Garcia more snaps, more throws. Maybe that helps him progress. Now, hopefully in the playoffs, they say, okay, it's time to play a little bit smarter.
Yeah, mix things up a little bit. Yeah, I wasn't sure if stamina played an issue because 20 carries should be manageable for anyone, and if they're just running the ball less, that's what it is. But I know last year, and I was one of the perpetrators. You see guys getting 35 plus carries a game, just running defenses into the ground, and that's been tweaked a little bit so that not every running back is Superman.
If you weren't doing that last season and you had the ability to, that'd be coaching malpractice. So, even my team with Scott Romero, right? Like I was going 50-50 throwing because the running game was so good. I'm like, I can't take the ball out of their hands because they're doing so good with it.
Yeah. Yep. Those were the days. Thank you, Mike Bradley, for a great season.
Indeed. Man, imagine if you had Mike Bradley on your team this season.
Oh, man.
And if Sam Johnson didn't throw 2 picks a game.
Honestly, Norman Ferguson has been fantastic, especially as a redshirt freshman, so I can't complain about the running game. Running game's the only thing that has worked, and I still don't understand why, because I built everything around on paper on the pass. I had mostly pass blockers. I don't know. But no, if Norman Ferguson was good, then Mike Bradley would have been even better.
Yeah.
So maybe not 3,000 yards better, but would have been really good.
Yeah, I don't think we don't have any 3,000-yard rushers this season. I don't think anyone's threatening to get that number this
No,
year.
I don't think
Which I think
Bradley did,
in
but
general,
it felt like that. It felt like
but there were
that.
like what 5 or 6 guys that did last year. There was like quite a
It
few people who. So I think the tweaks
may
are
have been
good.
may have been a
We're
touch
getting the balancing.
unbalanced.
Well, I mean, it's fair because the first couple seasons you had guys throwing for 7,000 yards,
Yeah,
and that's toned back, and that feels like that's much more reasonable now than what it was back then. So it's a work in progress.
yeah,
So that's been the fun part of the sim too, is really seeing it progress from where it was the first season to where it is now. I think it's a lot. I think sometimes results make much more sense than they used to at times. When you lose a game, you're like, okay, I can see what happened. Whereas maybe a couple seasons ago, you're like, I don't really get why that was a loss, but okay,
yeah,
let's try and fix it.
yeah. Trying to ride that line between long-term trends, large populations of data that make sense, while still acknowledging that individual games can have any number of bizarre things happen.
Yeah, yeah,
We had a pro game last week where a team scored 5 touchdowns in 10 minutes, because that just sometimes happens. Because
yeah. I mean, you can think back to the a long time ago Patriots Titans game, 59-0. The Patriots scored 35 points, whatever, in 13 minutes of game time. So it's not that far off.
yeah,
Sometimes things just go wrong for a team. And I've been at that end in that pro game a whole lot in my career here on
yeah,
the sim.
and and we had a 31-point comeback. We had a tale of two halves. We had 2.5 quarters of complete dominance one way, and then it ended 35-34 the other way. Which again has happened. We've seen it in college
Yeah, yeah,
football
yeah.
and in the pros happen. Um, we still haven't coded in a player getting hit in the eye with a penalty flag. That one's we're still working on that.
How about the butt fumble? Is that in yet?
No butt fumbles. We haven't had
Okay.
remove your helmet on the last play of the game and
Oh
give the
no.
opponents one untimed down. Still figuring that one out. We haven't had a band on the field. So it could always be weirder. Whatever you think is weird on
Yes.
paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, we haven't had
Which I think that's probably the hardest part of a sim, right? Is creating weirdness, right? Because I think inherently computers, right, don't are trying to not be weird, right? So the human element of the weirdness, right, to taking the helmet off, stuff like that, I think is very hard to generate in a sim in a computer environment, right?
Yeah. Well, I think, and that's where we see, the human ingenuity take that. Again, I've said before that I do think that mainstream sports are nothing more than very fancy random number generators, which we then attribute storylines to. And, sometimes, the universe gifts you one. Like, I remember Super Bowl 40, it was, Jerome Bettis, he's going to retire, he's going to Detroit, he's from there. It's like, sometimes, you get just the perfect script and everyone knows what the script is. The refs certainly knew what the script was for that game. Um, um, but sometimes you just get a bunch of stuff and you make the story of it. Like, like clutch is a really rare attribute in the sim. It does exist, but it's super super rare. But between the scouting tool and just kind of apocryphal stories from 1 or 2 games, people be like, oh, I don't know, this guy had he had this late touchdown drive, or he had this amazing play, maybe this is a clutch guy. And then out of that bird's nest of data come these storylines that we pick up on, extrapolate on, and carry out. So yeah, I think if anything, that's the human part, is taking the data and turning them into stories.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you have to do, right? It's the fun part of the sim is taking these fake names on a computer screen and okay, what's their personality? Who are they and what do they do? And I think that's why the player of the week stuff that Sage does is fun, just to try and give personality to the players and let the coaches try and figure out, okay, well, who is my guy? What does he talk like? How does he act? How much do I want to mirror real life? How much do I want to mirror myself? Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or like I remember doing a recruiting roundup last year, and I had a whole. I was getting these extra 4 stars that people had ignored because they were like D- or F potential, and I had a whole thing of like, Indiana recruiting players with like bad attitudes or work ethic or off the field issues.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Being the representation of that's why they're not going to grow, or that's why people are concerned about their development. And that becoming a whole thing of like, well, yeah, if you can play now, we don't care. And making a little mini arc around all these low potential players that I had scooped up that everyone else had ignored. Yeah, you make a story out of it. I'm also very particularly interested, and I've said this before about with athletes, with some of these blue chip athletes who are starting to come up and starting to get secondary designations, starting to get playing time. I really, really think both on the mechanic side and on the kind of RP side, that's just a whole wealth of new information and new storylines that we're going to start getting in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, really haven't seen a whole lot of them get, major playing time. I think the main guy I can think of is Jonathan Jackson for Notre Dame, right? I think he started like 6 or 7 games for them.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, there's not, in my mind, a high-profile guy who's gotten a lot of playing time.
Well, they're like
I think
true
some of those
sophomores,
guys are
right?
going
The
to be.
oldest ones are 2 years in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think I've got one that's like a redshirt freshman now.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I don't know that I have a spot for him on my defense. A situation where I was like, hey, I just need to get talent, and that no one was going after him. I'm like, I don't know that he fits my defensive, system.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can find a place for him, I'm going to. So he might be hitting transfer portal. I don't know. I think it might be some similar situation with other athletes. I think people were just excited to get them, and now they're like, okay, how do I use them? What's their natural? Where's their fit in my system? Do I have a system that they fit in? So I think that'll be the interesting part too. Is how do people start using them, and do people start trying to find guys who are, two-way players? How badly or good does that go? Do we have Travis Hunt? Do we have a Travis Hunter, or do we have a guy who's going to break his leg in 2 games and then you're never going to see him again?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's tricky too because you get like a certain number of attributes, and it's not until you can plug them into your depth chart and then compare against that position do you realize, oh, this guy's actually really fast, or he actually has really good hands, or like, like.
Or maybe I've got a positive player at linebacker, but my other linebackers are way better at linebacker than this guy is. Maybe he fits more as a slot corner
Mm-hmm.
or a safety, or I think teams, players, coaches are gonna start fighting. Maybe this guy isn't going to fit in the spot I initially envisioned him for. But if he's athletic enough, athlete being the archetype, maybe I can fit him in a position where maybe I'm not as strong at.
Yeah. And honestly, just there's either two, but really any just secondary position at all. We're seeing secondary positions becoming a lot more common, as teams have a chance to, recruit guys and then play them in a very specific way. That's another thing that, as a pro player and analyst, I'm very interested in too, is seeing what guys will up their draft stock by having versatility at multiple positions, whether that's athlete or with a secondary. Now, then you get the benefit of, well, now you also have two archetypes, both for primary and secondary, so you can get many different scheme bonuses.
Creative, like I think probably one of the biggest ones that we're going to see that maybe project well to the NFL will be the receiver and running back playing a receiver, playing a slot receiver role or something like that. We've already seen guys kind of transition to that role kind of permanently in college, and if they're able to maintain some semblance of running back skill, and then can you play them in different positions, maybe start them as a returner, and then you got him as your number 4 receiver and number 3 running back. You can use them in different ways, different positions on the field. I think guys like that could be valuable because basically you're filling 2 roles with one guy, one salary. So then you can fill a different hole with a different guy for a different salary, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what that versatility hopefully gives you. As long as their stamina isn't like a D or an F or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Not only coach versatility, but GM versatility. If you can fill 2 spots with one player, I hadn't even thought about it that way. But yeah, that's a completely separate bonus. I can pay a guy once to, even if one of them's a reserve, or even if both of them are reserve. If I can
Like
fill 2
your fourth
depths.
receiver, third running back, right? You maybe get 5 snaps at one position, 10 snaps at another position. But again, that's only one guy doing the 2 things, so you don't need to pay a second guy to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're, six, is it 6 years? This is six year college football, 5th of pro.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and still, as new things get developed, as more users come in, only scratching the surface of what people are willing to try to get guys in the field to develop interesting players. Do you, as a college coach, do you think at all about like player development, about developing guys in a certain way, or is it more about like, what I need for my college team on the field right now? Because I know some players are and maybe because they play both leagues, but are very interested in, oh, I'm not just thinking about what this guy's going to be like in college, but I'm already thinking about, oh, if I give him a secondary position, if I give him whatever, I might be making him a better athlete for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm more concerned about what they can do for me in college, right? I kind of split the 2 jobs into 2 different, mindsets. So at Ball State, it's more like, hey, what can you do to get us to win here? And if you don't turn into a pro prospect, I don't care. Doesn't really impact me. But yeah, I haven't always cared that much about potential because I think if you play the right guys early on, that won't play a big role. But I think it's more important when your team starts getting a little bit deeper and you can't play those young guys as much early on. A guy like Scott Romero, had good potential, but it wouldn't have mattered because he was a fresh, basically day 1 starter once he got off the red shirt, right? He was clearly the guy. But now I'm getting to a place where, I've got a little more depth at quarterback and running back and receiver where any guys I bring in this season, they're not going to touch the field really for probably 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So, they're not going to progress well. I try to put them on special teams to try and get them some snaps, right, as much as you can, without hurting your special teams unit being too bad and giving up too many big plays, right? So, I think for teams that are looking to add talent now, that don't have a lot of talent, low potential, but high overall, I think those are perfect guys for you, right? I think once you start kind of getting a little deeper in your roster, you kind of start thinking, okay, I need higher potential guys who will progress a little bit better on their own as they're redshirting and backing up guys. And hopefully you're blowing teams out enough that you're getting them in the game late in games to get some free snaps, even with 15, 20, whatever, just to try and get them some game action.
Yeah.
So I'm more concerned about more potential now in college, just because most guys aren't coming in and getting a chance to play.
Yeah.
With where the team is. So, which I'm happy that I'm at that position now. That I have to think about. Okay, this guy's not touching the field for 2 or 3 seasons. How am I going to make sure that when he's ready to get on the field, he's not still a B? He's not, or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah, it takes work to keep that pipeline going. Once you've developed it, and once you have those seniors and juniors that are ready to play, ready to be starters for 2 or more seasons, gets a little more interesting.
Like having a 4-year starter at a position, right, is fun because you get to see them play for 4 years. Like can we go back to Scott Romero again? He set records that are never going to be broken, right? Not just because we changed play style, but because the play style I have, I can't trust a young guy to run that offense at a young age. So they're going to have to be redshirt sophomores, redshirt juniors before they get on the field. So, most guys now that are going to be starting me at quarterback are only going to have 2, maybe 3 seasons as a starter.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm not in a position where like it was fun watching him, come out his first game and really beat Purdue up, and then get back down to playing like a freshman the rest of the season. But seeing his career progress, every year get better and better and better, was really fun. But I just don't think I'm going to see that anymore, and I just have to be, okay with knowing that I got this guy for 2 seasons. Let's make those 2 seasons fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Were you? I mean, I know there's like boom bust and many other factors, but were you surprised when Romero's like combine results came out, or were you just like, yeah, I knew he was this kind of guy?
So his senior season was a little weird, right? He got hurt,
Mm.
missed a couple of games, and he threw more interceptions that season than he threw in any season in his career, which still wasn't like 20. It was like 14. But still, the most he's thrown, things since like he was a freshman. I was kind of like, okay, we're not throwing the ball as much as we have been. You got hurt. You're still throwing a lot of picks. I don't, when you talked about the clutch, first guy I thought about was Romero because he's had some games where it's like, how are we going to pull this out?
Mm.
And then he comes in and it's like, oh, okay, we'll be fine. So I knew he had some of that dog in him. I know he had that much dog in him because we moved up the Colts. We moved up into the top 8 before I think the combine or right after the combine results came out, and he was my target.
Hmm.
And then it was pretty soon after the combine stuff came out. I'm like, oh no, he's not coming to me. So I was like, okay, who else can I get at this position? And then I was like, okay, well this guy, and then like 2 other teams traded up. And I'm like, okay, the last guy I'm gonna get is Oliveros, and I don't like him. So that's why we started trading back a whole bunch. Then we moved back like 2 or 3 times after we moved up. So like, I knew he was gonna be good. I did not know he was gonna be number 1 pick worthy. And I think he's had a pretty good rookie season.
I think he's been incredible. I think he's in the conversation for offensive rookie of the year for sure. Yeah, so he was your original target when you were going into the top 10.
Yeah, that's the guy I wanted. I was like, I think at that point I was like, okay, Savage still number 1 because he's been locked in number 1 since he was like basically a freshman, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Savage is a year younger, but their careers were the same years, right? They played 4 years, same years, and from like time Savage stepped on the field, it felt like, okay, this is number 1 guy. This is number 1 pick when he comes out. It's gonna be that's clear, right? And I did not think Kingery was gonna be that highly thought of. Although I liked him quite a bit. I was like, he's like more of a mid-teens pick. I think you'll see Savage and you'll see some linemen and cornerbacks and receivers, whatever go. I think we can get Romero at 8, and that'd be ideal. And then it was like pretty quickly after that, I'm like, oh no, that's not gonna happen.
Nope.
And then like Tampa Bay traded up and someone else traded up, and I'm like, all right, guys, I just moved too early, which it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not opposed to making big trades for quarterbacks, as my history would prove.
Yeah. Definitely true. Yeah. Do you think Igor, is it Simeone? I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah.
From UNC. Is he the next Brandon? Like, is this guy on the next guy on the number 1 overall pick in 3 years track?
I don't know. I mean, I would say so probably at this point. I mean, the only other freshman quarterback that played was Washington's guy, Yuan Kim, I think his name is, but he got hurt part of the year, and
Mm-hmm.
Igor was definitely better than him. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Hard to say no at this point, right? Just because not many other freshmen are playing as much early as they were playing back in 2022, 21, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to see those guys as early as often as we used to.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and obviously, a million things can happen in this many years, and then there's boom bust, and who knows what else will be added or tweaked in the next couple of years. But just I feel like when I see him play and I see his numbers and I see the way teams talk about him, like Savage is the only other comparison I have of someone who just right away people are like, that's a guy we are going to watch progress every year. And then watch someone give up a fortune to take him in the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, already building that kind of mythos around him as a freshman.
Yeah. I mean, just as long as Trigger is able to keep the talent around him, I think your receiving talent will be there. I think running back talent might be a little shaky next season or so.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as he continues to keep, good guys around him, no reason to think he won't be in that conversation in 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Again, unless, some boom bust metric comes in and he just has a really bad offseason and then he resets a lot of his stuff for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
See it happening, but it's theoretically could happen, right?
You never
Some
know.
guys sometimes in college just don't get better.
Yeah.
They just don't get better sometimes. They have a good, promising freshman season, then they're seniors, and you're like, you were doing this 3 seasons ago. Why are you still doing this?
Yeah, Sam Johnson. Anyway, um, oh, I have so many feelings about that quarterback. Um, I thought he was going to be our program savior, and then that did not happen.
It's balanced guys are so difficult, I think, in the sim right
Yeah.
now. Because you have one, and because I think who the North Carolina quarterback last season, I can't remember his name, Tavares Washington, was a balanced guy.
Mm.
Fantastic season, 1,000 yard rushing, 3,500 yards passing, right? Was the offense for North Carolina, and the other end you just have, I think the range of possibilities for balance guys is bigger than what
Mm.
you would see in other focused archetypes like a pocket or a scrambler. I think those guys they have a smaller range of what they're going to be doing, right? You'll still see like Savages be really really high, but you're not going to see a bunch of high rated pocket quarterbacks be really bad, right? They're going to be kind of
Mm-hmm.
mediocre. But I think balance guys just because I think there's again they're not necessarily great at anything.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll struggle at times, and so the good ones will be really freaking good, but the bad ones will be really kind of bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And then speed and agility play a huge factor too in terms of if they're going to be like two-factor guys if they can run, um, or if they're slow in a bad pocket presence, and then it's like, well, you're kind of like a pocket guy with a weak arm. Um,
Exactly right, because all balanced guys, right? They play differently. All scramblers usually going to play pretty the same. All pocket guys can be pretty the same, but again, the balanced guys think have a wider range of
mhm.
skills and gaps and holes. That in their skill tree, so to speak. That one balanced guy in the same offense versus another balanced guy in the same offense may have radically different experiences.
Yeah. Been thinking about real life, putting real life quarterbacks into our archetype system, and who would be a pocket guy versus a field general versus a balance versus a scrambler. Um, I mean, I guess scrambler's kind of obvious, but I've been wondering about like, oh yeah, who of like NFL Hall of Fame caliber would I put as a balance quarterback? Because like, I mean,
I think a guy. I think historically, when we've especially in old sim when Aaron Rodgers was still really good, um, we would look at balanced guys similar to him and say they're not a guy who's going to run for a bunch of yards, but it's 3rd and 5. You give the guy quarterback scramble for 6 yards, get the first down.
mm-hmm,
He can do it.
mm-hmm,
So that's kind of my mind is ideally this kind of like what a not that all balanced quarterbacks are going to be like as good of a passer as Aaron Rodgers was in his
right,
prime, which I think some young guys are forgetting how freaking good Aaron Rodgers was for as long as he was. Right, the man's crazy, but he could throw the damn football. Right. Um,
yeah,
so like he was kind of like, hey, okay, you're not going to get him scrambling all left and right and center, but he'll get you the 5 or 6 yards you need to get the first down when you
mm-hmm,
need it. Right? He's not going to. You don't want him carrying the ball 15 times. 3 to 4 times, you're fine. You're happy with that.
yeah,
So that's kind of historically what I've kind of used as the model is that type of scrambling ability, or maybe like even like an Andrew Luck
mm.
was a similar guy, right?
Yeah, and it's not always about rushing, but it's about like mobility too, and being able to
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
You're not looking for a balanced guy to run typically for like 1,000 yards. You're looking for him to get 200-300 yards, but again, get those key clutch yards. That's what you want him
yeah,
to get those yards for, right?
yeah, and not get sacked like a pocket guy as much. Being able to,
If you're Andrew Luck, you didn't have a
well,
choice, but
yeah,
that was my pain for the 2010s was watching him get absolutely beat up every single Sunday.
ugh, that's rough. Oh man, I was a Browns fan in the 2000s, so that was just it was like three. You got to see 3 or 4 different crappy quarterbacks every year. Um, uh, and then we got a good one and ran him out of town. Um, but stuff happens. Bringing it back around to college sim, we talked about the playoffs and any other. We have now the complete list of bowl games, and I've talked in the past about how sometimes the best bowl games are the ones where two programs that no one has followed all year, put up an incredible game. Um, any really spicy bowl games outside of the playoff system?
I really haven't looked at the bowl game list. I really haven't looked. I just looked for my game, honestly, which I think might be a good one. I play Notre Dame, so I think that might be a pretty good, fun matchup because Notre Dame plays, pretty stout defense. They run the ball,
Mm-hmm.
and we're pretty similar, kind of in that perspective. But I have no clue where they're going to put a quarterback, so I'll try and figure out a game plan for what the quarterback situation is. Um, but I haven't really noticed or looked really who else is playing who.
Indiana's playing BYU, so we'll see if we end up being Dick's last college football game. Dick Richards.
We really don't have a lot of early declarations in the sim history. Like, Savage absolutely should have gone after his junior season. The fact that he stayed around for his senior season made no sense from if you're looking at it from a real life perspective.
Right.
But, that's part of I think the difficult part of a sim is how do you balance real life versus,
Mm-hmm.
Not angering every single user in the sim, that their guys are going too early or something. Because, successful teams are going to have more guys go more often, which makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're more successful, usually you're getting more talented players. Tennessee has gotten like the number one recruiting class before this season like 3 or 4 times in a row, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just loaded with talent. So you should think theoretically some of those guys should be going early. But at the same time, is that fun for people if their
Right.
guys leave early, right? You have to balance the fun versus
Yeah.
realism, and it's always kind of a tough balance to walk.
Yeah. And Savage would have been a true junior, so he had only had 3 seasons, which in the way our
Yeah.
overalls work would have left him underdeveloped. The red shirts, I understand, if you can at least get, especially now that redshirt progression has been bumped, if you get 4 years, even if they only play 3 of them, if you get 4 years of development, some guys could conceivably be
Yeah,
draftable.
yeah, okay.
But again, early declarations, it's not even just are they worthy of being drafted. Those are guys that want to go in like the first or second round. So that's an even higher hurdle.
But at the same time, how many early guys who declare early in real life maybe told they're a second, third round pick, and they fall to the sixth, or they go undrafted,
That's
right?
true.
I mean, if you're following realism, you'd have a whole lot more of those guys that just kind of fall off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Which again, probably wouldn't be fun for the college coach who's like, hey, I kind of wanted him for another year.
Yeah.
If he's not going to play in the NFL, you might as well just sort of stay here,
Yeah. But I don't know about your ratings, but I think Richards was my top rated quarterback in the preseason, even above Cooper Williams or PMS or any of those guys. So I personally think there could still be a chance that he declares, which would be wild, and would have huge ripple effects.
Because he is a redshirt junior, right? He had a redshirt season.
Yeah. So he'll be 20. He would be 22 if he declared and got drafted. Same age as Savage was. So
Yeah.
we will see if playing the Hoosiers in the Duke Mayo Bowl is his last collegiate game.
But if you think about it, if you're Dick Richards, who are the other quarterbacks in this class? You got Holden, who I think
Holden's the big one.
Specific teams will be high on.
But
Right?
very
You got
completely
PMS.
different archetype. Yeah.
Yep, you get Leatherstitch. But I mean, outside of those guys, who's really out there? Frankly,
It's
this quarterback class is to me feels a lot weaker than what we thought it was, for last season. So
yeah.
if you're Dick Richards and you think, hey, I got to go against PMS and Leatherstitch, I like my chances there.
Versus waiting a year and going up against.
Because I don't know who's going out next year either, though.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, Jake O'Connor would be redshirt junior next year, I think, right?
Okay, maybe. There are bigger names. I just can't remember them.
Caesar Chacon, Tulsa would be a senior next year, so he'd be out. I don't think in my mind, he's not a very good pro prospect, but he's a guy that you have to consider. But I can't think of a lot of big names that are juniors.
We shall see. Um, but no, I don't. There aren't a lot of names I know. The other big one is, at least by overall in my rankings, was Brad Pogue. But again, I think the receiver class looks particularly deep. I don't remember. I don't think our. In actuality, I don't think mechanically that does make a difference. But for the purposes of our show,
Right.
it feels like, well, no, I would wait and try to be the Prochnow of next class and be the top of the top, then go into a stacked class that has, so many good receivers, at least a couple of whom are probably going to boom just mathematically, and then you get lost in the mix. But I have him very highly rated as well. He's one of my top
Very good player.
juniors. So,
Yeah.
but Richards is the only one that I'll be like the moment I know that whatever it is, the moment progressions happen, I'll be like, is it coming back or is he declaring? Because if he declares, that's gonna make a huge change. Um, everyone's gonna have to throw their mock drafts out and start over, like
Yeah.
level of
Yes.
level of change.
Yeah. I mean, he had a rough start. I don't think he had a rough. The team had a rough start to the season, but they also had a pretty tough schedule. The first 6 weeks was a pretty hard gauntlet.
Yeah.
Since then, he's been unbelievable. Again, weaker competition, but he's been absolutely incredible since those first 6 weeks. It's been crazy how good he's been.
It's true. Sorry, I got distracted of thinking of which users were going to angrily comment that we forgot their quarterbacks in the junior class. 'Cause I know there's some.
Yeah,
I can't.
I don't have to mention. I gotta mention, even though I don't think he's a great pro prospect, Keon, the guy from Navy, whose name I can never pronounce.
Mm-hmm.
He's going this season, but I have to mention him because otherwise Syndicate will come after me.
Oh man.
You know the junior guy we forgot? Willie Robinson from Western Michigan, I think, is a now redshirt junior
Okay.
season. Although he's had, in my opinion, a pretty bad season for what he should be having. I think he's thrown 17 interceptions.
Yeesh. Yeah, I still can't shake the feeling that we've tilted a little far on interceptions. But
Yeah, I mean, because, talking Robinson specifically, right? Last season they had David Ponce de Leon, who was a 2,500-yard rusher, right?
yeah,
So they were throwing the ball a lot less. So even though I don't think he was a great quarterback as a sophomore, he only threw 5 picks. I'm like, okay, I can live with that if I'm Jarrett. But this year, they bring over the running back transfer from ECU, Wellington, I think it's Brown Jr., and he just did not really do much, right? So that means that Willie Robinson's throwing the ball for 45 times a game. They have one really good receiver in Eli Madison, and they've got a couple okay guys. They weren't very deep at receiver. I just don't think he was up to the task of that much of a workload, which means some guys just aren't, right? Some guys just can't handle that much workload.
yeah,
Not everyone. It's a Dick Richards or a Brandon Savage, right? They can't handle that much workload and maintain, efficiency and protect the ball.
yeah, and I think supporting cast makes a great deal too. I'm looking at the pros. You're looking at guys like like Okoye Landrum, who looks great on paper, or Christian Sinnock, who the Vikings have said we believe in this guy. We like how he looks. We want to develop around him. So even though he's underwhelmed, we think this is the best guy we're going to get for a long time, and we're gonna commit to him. And yeah, it's tough when you got one guy who's really good on paper and the numbers don't show up, and it's like, well, do we just need to build around him better? Do we need to tweak our scheme, find something that works better with him? Because the numbers are all there.
Is different teams going to target different parts of the field and different route trees, and if you don't have the receivers to do those route trees or handle those parts of the field, then you're not giving your quarterback the chance to succeed. And part of that's just got to be a test and trial and error and just see what works and what doesn't work. Sometimes if you take a quarterback that highly, sometimes you'll reach out to the college coach and see if they're willing to gave some tips and tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember. I think San Francisco kind of reached out to me when I was running with Romero, and I kind of gave him, hey, high level is what I did. Also, I had one receiver that I could always count on to be open, so I targeted him heavily.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of why I had success, because that guy was always freaking open. But these are the routes that I know he just wasn't the best on. These are what things that I could always count on him to be good with. So, you know, even though I'm not necessarily developing my guys to be pro prospects, if they get drafted and teams want to know what I did to how I used them, I'll tell them.
Yeah.
Unless they're in my division. If you're in my division, you know, don't even message me. I'll lie to you. Straight up, I'll lie to you.
Yeah, we have standards. Oh man. I had another thought, but then I lost it. Nope, it's gone. It's funny. I hadn't even thought about like, oh right, yeah, the same coaches in college and pro. And you're just reaching out and be like, hey, what did you do to unlock this guy? Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I don't know if Bobby is still around. I don't know if he would help his old college rival now that I drafted his quarterback onto my pro team. Because Enku was a Purdue guy.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's still. Yeah. Yeah. Situation where real life just kind of needs your time.
Oh, boy, do I know it. That's why I'm here at after 10 at night. Like, I gotta record a show. Gotta get a show out. Cool. Well, let's say we talked about bowls and playoffs. I don't know. I haven't gotten too deep into transfer portal yet. I don't know if there's any big names that people are going to be on the lookout for that we expect are going to be moving.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint at this point in the season just because I don't always remember the timing, but you have progressions first and then transfers, right? That's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you have a guy who progresses better than you expect, and then a guy who doesn't progress as well, then all of a sudden maybe your initial thought of, well, this guy should transfer because they're going to be below rated. All of a sudden, oh wait, they jumped the guy, so maybe he's going to stay. Mm-hmm. So like, I kind of look through my own roster, kind of like look through position by position, based on what guys I brought in through recruiting and what guys were leaving. Keep a list of about 15, 20 guys. I thought these could be transferring. None of them particularly any good. So I don't know there's going to be the big names. The Virginia receiver who left last season, I can't remember his name. I think he went to South Florida. Like, I didn't see that coming, right? But if you look at Virginia's play style and what they had a receiver coming back, like, okay, it kind of makes sense. It doesn't make sense to go to South Florida, but it makes sense to try and find somewhere else to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I wrote down is kind of something to maybe talk about is, for recruiting for, how much are you going to recruit high school players? How much are you going to recruit transfers?
Mm-hmm.
The top transfer guys, every year I try and go after 4 or 5 of them, and every year I lose out on all 4 or 5. So do I need to start switching up my transfer, my transfer recruiting strategy? And, I'm in a situation where, for me personally, in my roster, I haven't been getting full classes. So next season, my roster is going to be well under I think it's 105 person limit is the limit to college. I'll probably be 15 people under that. So, I need to transfer portal hard just to get people on the team. So I can't be going after all the B pluses and the A's and A minuses, right? So I got to try and pick my spots and who people not going after. And if I get, someone tries to challenge me, maybe I just start, historically, if someone's challenged me in a recruit, I don't want to back away necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I think you just have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the Tennessee quarterbacks is going to transfer, though, because I think they've got, behind Jake O'Connor, they got 2 quarterbacks who I think who aren't seniors this season. So one of them's got to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think basically every year Tennessee's going to lose a quarterback. This is how it's probably going to work with how they grew. Um, I think the guy's name is Chun. It's Chun something. I think he's got a Chun hyphen first name, Catman. And when I was doing my weekly rankings, when I was really looking at them, because they were up so often, he was getting in the game a lot, still late in games. Mostly against bad teams, but still. And he was consistently in my top like 5 quarterbacks based on the 25 snaps he was taking. I'm like, okay, it's against garbage, but this guy is producing when he's in the game. Like theoretically on paper outperforming Jake O'Connor, right? Just on pure raw numbers, not looking at the game situation and whether he's playing first string or second string defense or whatever the case is, right? So if this guy hits transfer portal, if people are paying attention to him like to a season, I think he may get a lot of attention.
Interesting. I'll have to keep an eye on that.
You could probably use a quarterback there next season, maybe.
God. So yeah, I have a 4-star pocket guy who's redshirting right now named Ruben Taggart, which I just love his name more than anything. I also just love that he's not a balanced guy. So we're gonna roll the dice. We might end up rolling the dice on another freshman, or whoever is at Indiana, if it's me or someone else. We will see. But Ruben Taggart has at least a great name going for him, so that's got to count for something. And JJ Pilov's got one more year, so he'll always have Pilov.
Well, only for one season.
One more. Oh no, I think if Pilov might be my last best chance in a long time at getting a first round Hoosier. Looney is graduating this year, but again, it's a deep wide receiver class. Doak at center could be really good, but
centers don't usually go first round, right?
Yeah, most people just draft a good. We love guards, so most people just draft a guard and then shove him at center. I guess Shazier was the opposite. Shazier was a center who they put at guard. I don't remember.
I don't feel like there's a lot of really high rated centers in the NFL for the most part. I generally I don't think there's a lot of good centers around to use. So it's one of those positions I think similar to like a linebacker where maybe there's just a lot that they're responsible for. So that they have more attributes that maybe contribute to what the overall is.
Yeah.
So there's maybe overall deflation that happens with some positions, right?
Yeah, I think it's pretty small, but I do think IQ matters more for centers, and they have like that one line captain archetype that is specifically about higher IQ. So yeah, that might be part of it. That IQ is a slightly bigger part of their formula compared to just like the strength and the blocking. Or I might just be desperate for someone to take Doak and say that I had a first rounder.
Hey, having first rounders is really fun. Doesn't make a difference in recruiting, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Are you think you get another one this year with Nunez? I think I was pretty keen on him when I did my first mock.
Yeah, I don't know how good the tackle class is, but at the same time, I've also got another guy opposite him who had a really good season too in Chad Coleman. So got 2 tackles, depending on how they go. One or both could potentially be first rounders. Both, I think Coleman's it's now a 3-year starter. Nunez is a 4-year starter. So I think Nunez started 2 years at right tackle. Now it's been 2 years at left. So I think Coleman's a 2-year starter at the right tackle position then. So, part of the reason why, we looked at, I think, who was it? D'Arden put his kind of mock kind of update of under maybe guys who are under the radar. And he said, hey, I initially put Nunez, now I might do Coleman. Part of the reason Coleman's got more pancakes is because I ran speed option right like 50% of my plays. So we're constantly running behind him, way more than we're running behind Nunez. So we run to the right way more, so that's a factor. But no sacks allowed. Again, we don't throw the ball a whole lot, but, even when we did last season, we didn't get a lot of sacks either. So, both those guys could potentially be guys. But other than them, there's no one else on my roster this year that has a chance of being drafted. Honestly, I've got
Yeah.
no one else that's even close.
Yeah, you could pull. Was it Alabama that had like both their tackles taken in the first round one year?
I think Penn State had both. Was it Penn State last season had them both gone?
Oh yeah, freaking Penn State,
Because
man.
Dallas took one of them.
Oh yeah, Callahan was one. Is Sean Johnson graduated up yet, or is he up this year?
Hey, that name's familiar. It's a Penn State guy. I cannot remember.
Okay. I
Feel
just
like when I looked at Penn State in the preseason, an offensive line was one of their weaknesses, but I can't remember if Johnson was there or not.
yeah. I just remember because there was that Olympic gymnast with the same name,
Yes,
uh,
yes.
which
From like 2016.
yeah.
You and I are too old to be remembering this stuff.
Hey, at least I'm in the current century. This is not like my Jarrett interview where we talked about the night like the original Game Boy, which I did look and did find in its case right over there after that interview. Um, doesn't work.
Yeah, my wife found her old one at her mom's house when she was cleaning it out a couple of years ago, and only found a couple of games. I think the one game that she found that she said she's wanted to play, hasn't done it, was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That had a game.
Yes, for the original Game Boy. Yes,
Gosh,
I
that's
think it might be Game Boy Color.
wow.
I don't know,
Yeah,
but either I'll be surprised that thing turns on. But those old things were built to work forever.
yeah, yeah. I'm just mad that I definitely own Tetris at some point, and I don't have that game cartridge, or I don't know where it is. That's the only one I'm sad about. Because
I'm
I
sure you could buy
definitely
it online for $250 or something
ex-
stupid at this point.
exactly. Well, I mean, that's the only reason I would want it is to claim that it's
Sell
worth
it.
that someone theoretically
Yeah.
would pay a lot of money for it. Um,
We moved a couple years ago. I did that, right? Went through all my old like PlayStation 2 games I had. I'm like, okay, I don't play any of these. I'm not gonna take them to the new house. Are they worth anything? So I went on eBay, started looking through $3, $4, $4. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go to Goodwill. I'm not gonna. It's not even worth my time.
yeah.
The only one that was worth anything was the one game I wanted to keep. So I'm like, well,
Mm,
I'm not gonna give this one away.
yeah. My dad was into model railroads when we were kids and had a huge setup that he from one move that we then didn't have the space for like just like preserved like covered and kept in like a basement or garage or something, and then by the next move was like okay I can start moving on from some of this stuff, um, and none of them were like valuable in the sense, but a lot of them he was like I just sold them for like the same or slightly more than what I paid for them originally. Like they're still like in good shape. There's still people who collect these
Yeah,
who are interested in specific models or specific years. And he was like, I mean, it's not a good investment because it was 20 years later, but he was like, I think I just got most of my money back that I ever put into the
well,
hobby.
yeah. I mean, you also look at a hobby as an investment, right? You look at it as
Right,
something to spend your time and have joy. So, if 20 years you're out of the hobby and you can get some of your cash back, hey, that's a win, right?
right. Um, yeah, sorry, I led us down a rabbit hole while joking about how we hadn't done that yet. Uh, um, did I anything else on college, or if you want to dip into the pro sim at all, any other names we haven't talked about or storylines you've been following through the end of this year that we haven't
No,
touched
I'm
on?
always interested. Like, I know you post one out, I put one out, Sweezy does, and Sage. We all do some preseason kind of team rankings, talent rankings.
Mm.
I'm always curious how other people are kind of putting theirs together. Because, I was doing my preseason series last year for the podcast. You know, for a good amount of teams, the four of us were kind of in a certain a range together. You're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I can see why, it's 40 to 52, right? We're kind
Mm-hmm.
of close. And then others, you guys would be like in the mid 50s on a team, and I'm like, this team like 92nd.
Mm.
Why are we so far apart? Like, why are you guys so close, and why am I so away from you guys? So I'm just curious, how you guys put those together. What's your basis? Obviously, you don't need to put out your whole formula. I'm just curious, what's methodology? what do you guys value? How do you value it? Stuff like that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to revisit. Um, I know I've kind of looked at from the pro sim where you have all the actual values, um, being able to look at the correlations between certain attributes and overall scores, um, which I'm pretty sure is in the code in GitHub if people just want to look it up. Um, but of course, in college you don't get those values. You only have grades, so you kind of have to convert the grade into some sort of number, and then use the overall formula to turn that into some
But
sort of
like an
estimate.
A has a I think a pretty wide range, right?
Right.
Like
And
you have some low rated A's that may perform at a good level. Then you have other A's that are like theoretically on paper have the same attributes, but are like they're like 25% better.
yeah.
So how do you measure those guys together?
Well, this is the first year that I also compared it to last year's roster and gave boosts to people that were A pluses the year before, because I'm like, well, they should be better. Like their A plus this year should be better than their A plus was last
Right.
year.
If they're continuing to progress, right?
Right. And they shouldn't be so good, that they're already hitting the like I don't expect to see any actual 80s and 90s where they're actually progressing slower because they're
Right.
maxed out. So that might be why uh, Tyler Prochnow, how we say him, is my highest rated recruit of all time, because he's been an A plus guy for forever. Um, but it is funny that in my system, like I'll have guys that show as A, so I know they should be a certain overall, and they're like 2 points less than that threshold, and I'm like, oh, okay, my model doesn't like these guys. um, I'll have B plus guys rated 2 points above what I know the A threshold would be. Um, so it's imperfect, but that's kind of the fun of it too, is being like, well, teams do have different evaluations of the same player depending on what they see and what
Right.
they value.
It's also a B plus in one team in one system. You put that same player in another team that's a different system. Maybe they're a B. Maybe they're a B minus.
Yeah.
So it's there's especially with college, there's theoretically a wider range of those values fluctuating from
Mm-hmm.
team to team.
So, so yeah, that mine goes bottom up. It's from attributes to player grades, and then looking at teams and grading them that way. I know I don't do as much with uh, um, ages of players. So sometimes I'll overvalue teams. Um, all right, hold on. Let me think. I will undervalue teams that have had strong recruiting classes that just haven't aged up yet. Um, so I might have more variability year to year, because some people might take that more into account. Um, or sometimes you can overvalue because it's like, well, in general, this team is really deep, and it's like, well, yeah, but that's because they have a lot of strong recruits that aren't getting playing time yet. So you know, if this, so then there's a question of, well, how many grades do you look at? Are you looking at the top 20 because those are your starters? Are you looking at just the top 10, just like the biggest playmakers? Do you consider quarterbacks more highly than everyone else? So there's all kind of tweaks that people can add to specify to put a weight on the scale on one side or the other.
Yeah, like offensive line is a good place, right? Like, do you value left tackle, right tackle the same?
Right.
Do you value center the same as your guards? Do you value
Mm-hmm.
running back two and wide receiver two the same? Like defensively, how do you value safeties versus linebackers, right? Because some systems put a
Right.
lot more pressure on the safeties versus, and I think one thing is theoretically you would know the system and you'd be able to adjust for that, but there's so much variability with coaching instability and
Mm-hmm.
AI decisions. That's like next to impossible to figure
Yeah.
that out. So they're weak at linebacker, but the linebackers are barely on the field, so who cares? That they're
Right.
not on the field, they're not doing much. Their safety is more important. Are their safeties good? Okay, you get a bump. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah. And even then, it's like, even if how much time do I want to look into getting the offensive and
yeah,
defensive schemes for 120 teams and dropping
yeah,
them in and
yeah.
then tweaking formulas?
136 now going to be
Oh God.
137, probably close to 140 within the next couple of years if you think about it.
Wow.
Because Sacramento State, I don't know when we're going to move them up in sim because they're going to FBS.
Mm-hmm.
I think this season. They're paying an arm in the leg,
Oh,
the
that's
second leg, and a second
right.
arm to do it.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
They're paying the conference $18 million
For the honor of.
over 5 years,
Oof,
with $6 million due in the first year. You have to
gosh.
pay $5 million to the NCAA to move up, and they're paying all the travel costs for MAC teams to come visit them for the full time.
Oh, right, it's in the MAC. Sacramento's.
So, like the closest team to them geographically now is Ball State. In Muncie, in the eastern half of Indiana, that's the closest geographic team to them now because Northern Illinois is gone to the Mountain West. But then you got Buffalo and UMass
Oh, you.
up in the Northeast.
Oh, I. People can call me old or old fashioned. Sacramento State and UMass should not be in the same conference.
Look,
Any more than. Who is it? Cal?
Cal should not be in the
Thank you.
Atlantic Coast.
You read
Cal and
my,
Stanford in the Atlantic Coast
you read my mind.
Conference. Even USC and UCLA being in the Big Ten, and Washington and Oregon too. Like I get why college football's doing it, right?
Yeah.
I get why they're making these super conferences, but I remember growing up with the Big Ten being like in Big Ten country, right? Northern Indiana is where I grew up, right?
Yeah.
It's Big Ten country. You got the noon Big Ten game between Northwestern and Illinois that finishes 10-7 with Beth Mowens calling it. Like those are classics for me. Those are classic noon, like early afternoon game for me to sit down and miserably watch these two teams pitifully play against each other for 4 quarters. And that's basically gone.
Yeah, I remember when Nebraska joined to make it 12 teams, and I was like,
Yes, that still feels weird.
I was like, that's weird, but okay. If you're in the plains with Iowa,
Geographically, it's close, right?
okay,
It kind of makes sense, right?
right, and then it was Rutgers, and I went, I don't know, that doesn't feel. Maryland and Rutgers didn't feel right.
Those feel like those feel like ACC teams to me.
Yeah.
They should be in the ACC.
And then people were like, "Well, it's because of DC and New York. They want those media markets." And I was like, "Well, that's no fun."
Yeah, but I don't care about that.
And then yeah, then we went to the West Coast and we just threw everything out the window. Um, say Levy, I suppose.
You look at the SEC and really outside of Missouri, I think every other team geographically kind of makes sense. But even Missouri, like people are
Famous
extending the Midwest out
coastal
far
state
too
of
west, in my
Missouri.
opinion.
Yes,
Like if you listen to some people, the Midwest is like Montana, like
those people are
Wyoming.
wrong.
I'm sorry,
Objectively,
that's wrong. Even Nebraska's not in the Midwest. I'm sorry.
that's the plains.
Iowa's as far west as you go. Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, it ends there.
Yeah,
Missouri's the South, the Plains. I don't care where Missouri belongs. It's not Midwest.
yeah. If you know your history, Missouri is definitely the South. There was a whole thing about it. Read a book.
Yeah, but the definition of Midwest just keeps growing, and I'm like, it's like 6 states, guys. It's like 6 of us here, and these other 5 states are not clearly just not
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, I feel like it's like the Great Lakes and then Iowa on a technicality. Like that's
Yeah, it's Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and then you throw in Iowa.
yeah, it's the Northwest
That's
Territory.
it.
That's what it is.
Kentucky is South. Kentucky's
Kentucky's
South. If you've ever been driven through Kentucky, it's South.
Yeah, and I
You
get
could probably even chop off like the southern half of Indiana and throw it to the south. Like you could probably do that too
yeah,
if you really wanted to.
yeah, and Pennsylvania and New York are big states, but man, once you cross the mountains, like they have Midwestern parts to them. I understand that, and rural parts, but yeah, once you cross the mountains, that's East Coast country.
Yes,
Um,
that's Mid Atlantic. You get they get their own thing.
yeah. Oh man, that yeah. Don't even get me started on how many how many distinct regions. I mean, there infinite number of ways to answer that question. But like, wait, right when you think of regions of the country, like how many do you choose? I guess it would be better to say if you had a certain number of regions. Like if you had, I don't know, six. Could you do six? Would you make it eight? Like,
Well, yeah, Northeast, Mid Atlantic. To me, South is kind of a broad term. It goes from like Texas down to like Florida.
uh-huh.
I don't know if Florida fits culturally, but it's there.
Yeah.
Get the Midwest, get the Plains, and then you got the West Coast, I guess. Alaska and
Right.
Hawaii are kind of doing their own thing. They
Yeah,
don't count.
but
If you're
then
not connected, you don't count.
but then you've got like Utah and Colorado, where it's like I don't call that, that's not
Yeah,
West
that's fair.
Coast.
I don't think they don't fit West Coast. They don't fit the Plains. But what do you call them?
Yeah, then you kind of gotta. Well, and they don't match each other.
There's,
Like you wouldn't put Wyoming and like Wyoming and Colorado feel so very different culturally,
yeah.
so you wouldn't want to put them together. And then and how do you, I don't know, kind of a Rockies area, and I guess kind of a Southwest distinguishing from South would be eight, and
Yeah.
that kind of,
Like Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, kind of right, maybe.
yeah,
That kind
and
of
parts of
trio.
Texas. Texas is big;
Yeah.
it can handle being split up.
Yes, it could.
Yeah, yeah, that work. Yeah, yeah, the whole Northwest that's not Pacific Northwest is kind of a mystery to me. Feels like you could do a little more there, but
Yeah, because the Pacific Northwest feels like really it's Seattle and Portland, right? And then it feels like
yeah,
the rest of those entire states are completely different culturally.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So they don't want to be grouped into those same areas.
yeah. So yeah, I think seven or eight, you can get a pretty good picture. Um, but
You want to talk about going off the rails here? We have gone way,
yeah,
way off the rails.
was that a did you have another rail, or is that a commentary on how far we've
No,
fallen?
that was just hey. We
Okay,
said we were going to try and stay on topic, and
it didn't.
yeah,
There's like two
that
people
was
listening at
probably
this
the
point. It's fine.
yeah. At this
Everyone's,
point in the podcast, everyone's kind of like, hey, okay, they're doing their thing.
yeah. If your commute
They're
hasn't,
Midwestern dads talking about what the Midwest is and isn't.
it's, wow, that's 100% factually accurate, and it makes me sad. Every word of that sentence was true. Yeah, if your commute hasn't ended by now, then you have other problems that we can't solve. Um, so you're on your own. Um, then I guess I will wrap up. But thank you so much for this conversation. It's been delightful to talk to you. Thank you for taking me a little bit out of my comfort zone, talking a little bit more about college, which I know less about, but is more fun. I love hearing how much people know and how much they can dive into, and all the names and stories that they're tracking. Um, and again, as a creator of media and a lover of media, thank you much for your show, and for putting that out there. I know it's a ton of work, and it is not unnoticed and not unappreciated, how much you add to the community. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Feels good.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We'll catch you next time. For now, good luck and have fun.